Any questions? All right, then we'll move on to staff report by the city attorney. Please, sir.
All right. The item, I was asked to report on just the one item, that the Sonala property, there was set to be a tax deed sale on August 7th. That sale was canceled. In talking with the county clerk, what happened, the reason for the cancellation was that the taxes were paid. So parties stepped up and paid the taxes. In digging further into it, I was forwarded a number of deeds and some corporate documents by David Butler. And what appears to have happened is that on August 2nd, the property was deeded from Sonala, both parcels, from the Sonalas to Clean Up Carrabelle, LLC, a company that was just recently established, a Florida LLC, and then 2 days later transferred to another company called Absolutely Sure LLC, a Georgia limited liability company set up back in 2014. And it would appear that they are the current owners of the property, and that the taxes now have been paid. There will not be a tax deed sale reset, according to the clerk. And what remains unclear is whether or not they cleaned up the bankruptcy trustee issues as far as getting a trustee's deed, or Regions Bank, or whoever the current lender is based on assignments, as to whether or not they've cleaned up title on the property so that they actually have good title to the property without clouds. But I believe they are the current owner, this Absolutely Sure LLC, and I will be bringing this up at the City Commission meeting also, but since that property's been condemned and we really haven't had a liable party in order to kind of get it cleaned up, I'll be requesting that the commission direct me to send them a letter, certainly congratulating them on being the new owner of a nice piece of waterfront property, but also inquiring as to what their plan is to get it cleaned up, because it's long overdue.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. Hartman regarding that topic? So I do. Will you need to know whether the title is without clout first, or will that matter?
It does not matter.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for Mr. Hartman?
LLC is just no way to confirm who an LLC is.
Correct, and I've got some of the organization documents and that sort of thing, and it's all very cryptic. And no, I mean, bottom line is, obviously, I've certainly on the private side set these up for a lot of people, and some people say, hey, I want everybody involved listed right up front, and then other folks say, no need for that. All we need, they've certainly complied with the statutory minimum in order to get them set up, and that's all they have to do. So, although I will inquire, I did not before this meeting, but I'm not saying this will lead to anything, but the deeds appear to have been prepared by Steve Watkins. So I can certainly talk to him about it. And he does not, he's under no obligation to talk about it. But
All right. Does anyone have anything else? Okay, then I would like to ask Mr. Hartman about how meetings are conducted. And I'll first request that you be sure to speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear. Over the past week, I've had 3 comments, and one was very in-depth yesterday regarding their concern that the city meetings are not being conducted under Robert's Rules of Order, and that we are allowing discussion before motions are made. So I have not been informed that the city meetings are to be conducted under Robert's Rules of Order. I did not know that the city had adopted Robert's Rules of Order formally. that was never told to me. I've sat under 2 mayors on this board, and as best I can tell, I mean, I'm not proficient in Robert's Rules of Order by no means. It takes years to learn, you know, a book like this, a thick book like this, and be able to operate with that. So the 2 mayors that I sat under didn't operate strictly by these guidelines. So I want to know, has the city, any commission in the past adopted Robert's Rules of Order?
All right, two pieces to that is, and the mayor had asked me about this last night, and I did try to do a bit of research before the meeting today. So this is just a preliminary opinion. If things change, I'll change my opinion, as lawyers do. But right now, this is how my understanding, and I've been with the city off and on from 05, late 04 into late 05, and then again 08 to current. The way the city has operated is that we're a city commission in a Florida municipality. We operate under essentially a parliamentary procedure type of process. This is all the motions, seconds, asking for the floor, all the niceties and procedures that go with that. Robert's Rules of Order is just one, and it's the most accepted, but one way of conducting yourself or whatever according to parliamentary procedure. Think of it like religion. You have all different religions, all different, say, Christian religions. So you have, not the best example, but Lutherans, Protestants, Presbyterians. But Robert's Rules of Order would be the dominant of that. So I mean, when people say Robert's Rules of Order, they don't even talk about another David's Rules of Order or anything like that that someone would use in place of Robert's Rules of Order. However, what cities in Florida are governed by is not Robert's Rules of Order. It's primarily Article 8, Section 2B of the Constitution and Chapter 166 of Florida statutes, which primarily, and sometimes very specifically, but when it talks about conduct of meetings, it basically puts cities under home rule powers in charge of their own meetings. So we adopt and apply our own rules for procedures at meetings. And we can choose to formally adopt Robert's Rules of Order. And I had asked Keisha last night by email, but really we talked about it just briefly this morning, in that during her tenure, my time at the city, I do not remember a resolution being adopted by the city, again, formally adopting Robert's Rules of Order. That in my time, when this issue's come up before, that we use them as a guide when we get ourselves in a spot where there's confusion on procedure, when it's not obvious and straightforward, but that we have not formally adopted it, therefore we're not formally bound by those procedures. Instead, we fall back on, has there been due process? Has there been adequate discussion? Was everybody heard when they were voting? It's those sort of things that are the most important, kind of the touchstone that the Constitution and statutes deal with, not and it can be more important than window dressing, but the Robert's Rules of Order, when in doubt, we defer to them, but when we're not in doubt, we proceed forward, and unless we screw up from a due process standpoint, a notice standpoint, we're fine. I mean, we're in charge. We govern our own rules, and I guess in a lot of situations, the mayor has also been delegated the authority to manage the meetings, to end discussion and things like this. But in this situation, we're looking at old resolutions. We have them going back to the 30s, Keisha tells me, in a number of different dusty old books. So we're going to flip through those and make sure that what I'm telling you, that we have not formally adopted Robert's Rules of Order. But again, talking to everybody that's been with the city for any length of time, everybody says, hey, I don't remember them ever being formally adopted. But we do have the book here, and Keisha usually has one next to her, that when we get ourselves in a bind or paint ourselves in a corner procedurally, we default to Robert's Rules of Order, but it's not binding on us.
Well, it looks like the first one was. I was just seeing it from like this book, but it looks like.
Oh yeah, no, Robert's Rules of Order have been around a long, long time, yeah.
1943, and then 1876.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Robert's Rules of Order has been around
Yeah.
longer than.
And then his son, and then his son, and then his third, his great grandson.
All right.
May I speak?
Yes, sir.
There's an excellent publication put out by the Florida League of Cities. It's sort of almost a pink book. And those of us who've taken the How to Be a Good City Commissioner course, sponsored by the league, it has some very good information in it. And there are times in there where, you know, formality is not a major issue. And it all depends on a lot of circumstances and on the way we want to operate.
Yeah, no, agreed, and I think that, and I was looking at that publication last night, because that's one I go to a lot of times. It's the manual, I forget,
Right.
the leadership manual or whatever that League of Cities puts out, and again, I only spent a couple hours looking into it, but it was a lot more, I could have sworn it was in our charter, that Robert's Rules was mentioned. It's not. I mean, I cannot find any mention of it in the old, called the book, or on Muni Code. And then looking more broadly, we do have a section, 10.02.02.05, that talks about the city essentially adopting rules for meetings, on how our procedure for meetings will go. And but again, it may be buried back in the 30s or 40s that we adopted something like that, and that's my only. Yeah, I mean, we have the power to adopt Robert's Rules of Order if that's what we wanted to do.
As a commission, not the CRA.
As a commission, or I would think, or the CRA
Yeah,
board.
I suppose so, yeah. But it seems to me like right now, as long as I've been on the board 4 years under two mayors and myself, and with the guidance, under your guidance, I would hope that you would correct me had I been managing the meetings wrong. But it seems like we're operating under a type of a modified style, more relaxed version of Robert's Rules for small boards. Boards of the 12 and under. That's what it seems like.
Yes, we are operating under a more relaxed.
Yeah, but as it's described in these, and actually I sent you these references last night.
Yeah.
So for boards of 12 and under, as it's described in there. Sometimes we modify, that's modified as well. And I think I understand Franklin County Board of County Commissioners has not adopted Robert's Rules of Order. I have said on the Appalachian Regional Planning Council, they have not adopted that. The TDC does not use Robert's Rules of Order. They conduct their meetings similar to how these meetings are conducted. So I just, wanted to make sure that I'm within the guidelines and operating under, managing the meetings legally.
Well, and as the commission's lawyer, the city's attorney, I would recommend we continue to proceed as we are, in that I looked, in researching this, there is some case law that talks about jurisdictions that have adopted Robert's Rules of Order as that is how we will operate. Then when you deviate from that, it actually can cast decisions made into question. That if you formally adopt them, then you better follow them to a T, or some smarty already in the audience may say, hey, I disagree with that decision that was made, and a month later challenge it in court and actually win because you didn't, follow literally some really picky procedural item that's required in Robert's Rules of Order that really is not, to me, when I read that stuff, a lot of it doesn't, for instance, as the mayor had mentioned, discussing things before there's a second on them or
Or
something.
or a motion in the first place. The person that was talking to me yesterday is very upset because we discuss items before a motion is made.
Yeah,
And I was quoted in here, if you go by this book, formal, you cannot have a discussion before a motion is made.
And that to me would be for us and me. I mean, I've been here now 9 years or so at this round. It would be very difficult to muzzle everybody on every item where we'll vote on something or later. But again, if the commission decided, hey, we want to do that, we want to impose, if things are just chaos, we want to impose more order on it, hey, we can do that. But in doing so, then we all need to get educated a little more on Robert's Rules of Order, because we could very just accidentally really shoot ourselves in the foot.
And yes, and I had someone that I was speaking with yesterday that's very upset, that thinks that we should be operating according to this, by the rule, by the strict rule. But this book is good for large boards, big boards like board of directors of big major companies like the Ford Company or your Senate, state Senate, U.S. Congress, where there's huge boards and they're allowed to speak out of the sunshine. They can actually have meetings and discuss things and have everything already decided, the questions already asked, and talk to the person that's presenting the question in the first place. They can have all of that done before they come to the meeting, and Robert's Rules of Order then saves time during big meetings when you have big groups on the board. But when you have a small group and you're restricted by the sunshine law, we can't meet beforehand and ask each other and have discussion and debate or talk to the person presenting the question. For instance, they're asking for a special exception. So it really hinders Robert's Rules of Order, hinders those boards that have to operate under the sunshine law. Now, that's just my opinion. So I'm going to ask Mr. Hartman to please pay close attention today during the CRA meeting. I want you to make sure I'm conducting this meeting correctly. I'm going to ask you to do that for the next several meetings. And you feel free to call me out at any time. I'm under training. Evidently, I don't know how to handle a meeting. Mr. Powell, did you have anything to say, Commissioner?
No, I was just thinking about the time the other day when we had a 1-1 vote and you voted to go with one side. So, and there wasn't a second, and you even announced it died for lack of second on the tape at least. But then from there we went on to discuss it. But I did find further on in the research that there is a case where you can actually, a motion can become law even without a second. If you start a discussion and you get into the discussion, and in the discussion everybody agrees to it, that is the same as having a motion, a second, and a vote on it.
I think that's what
there are all kinds of, wiggles in there.
Yeah, they call that something like agree in principle.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good term.
And we do that a lot. Whenever the attorney may bring something up, or the clerk or the administrator, they'll bring something up and we agree in principle. We don't have a vote on it.
General consent.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone have any questions on that? Thank you, Mr. Hartman, and you just keep an eyeball on me and make sure I'm running the meetings right. Okay.